Try that again. This will be a little bit better. Good morning, everyone. Let me call our meeting to order for July the 7th, 2026. We do have some people that are not here this morning. We do know that Jim Beloit is in healthcare invalidities and has been there for a while, so please remember him. Have we heard anything, Hugh, from Evan or Tim?
We have not.
Okay, no, all right. So at this time, let me remind you to silence your mobile devices, and please remember when you come to the microphone, please press the red button so that everything can be recorded like it's supposed to. As we say, Brian is here, Kevin Ferris is here, Jerry's here, and myself. So the first order of business that I want to do is approval of the agenda. I think you've had an opportunity by email to see that agenda. So if someone would give me a
So
motion,
moved.
have a motion to have a second. We do have a motion and a second. Namrita, Hugh, you taking notes today, right? All right, Mr. Clerk, that is a unanimous vote. We have approval of the minutes. I think the minutes have been provided to you also, so we'll entertain a motion there.
Again, so moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And I forgot to on the agenda, but that was unanimous anyway. Thank you so very much. Let's move on into our new business. The first thing we want to do is the introduction of our new tax administrator, Travick Isaacs. So Travick, I want to turn it over to you. Tell us all. We'll give you a good hour to tell us about yourself. Okay?
Good morning. Thank you, Johnny, for that introduction. I'm Travis Isaacs, as you said. I am got about 24 years in the property tax business. I'm from Watauga County, born and raised there for about 40 years. I worked for the Watauga County Tax Office for like 12 years. I worked in their listing office, their business personal property manager, and actually ran the county first ran license plate agency. So that was a big step for the state to actually allow a local government to run a license plate agency, and that was pretty successful. Then I moved on to North Carolina Department of Revenue for about 14 years, working in their local government division and their personal property section, overseeing the Machinery Act, working property tax commission appeals, real estate, and personal property. So I've been able to get a unique background looking at it from the state level, working both sides, seeing the taxpayer's point of view and the county's point of view. And now I'm here at Burke County. I live in Wilkesboro. I do not live in Burke County, but I drive every day, and I'm enjoying it. Everybody's been welcoming, and I'm looking forward to serving the citizens of this county. It's a great county to be in. Like I said, I am from Watauga County, and I came to Morganton a lot to enjoy some of the fine things that are here, the lakes, the golf courses and stuff. So it's really a great time to be here. Thank you all. And I just want to say something else about the tax force, this revaluation tax force. I've never seen something like this in the state, so it's great to show the transparency to the citizens and trying to show them the process and how this all works. We want to be as fair and equitable as we can be, and that's what we're doing here. So I just appreciate y'all taking your time to do this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Travis, and thank you for your introduction about your unique background, and you do have one, and you understand, like you say, from the state vantage point and from the county vantage point. And I think for myself, I speak for some of the rest of us that I'm very proud of what we've done here in Burke County as far as the taxes. I think we've kept them at a reasonable pace and where they should be to meet the needs of the people in this county, even though there are some distractors where there will always be. So let's move on with our meeting today and let's introduce Namrita again. And Namrita today is going to go over sales ratio and commercial value insights. That sounds like an interesting topic. So Namrita, you've got the floor.
May I have the clicker, please? Thank you. So we'll just start with a roadmap for where we've been and the subjects we've covered over the last so many meetings. The point that we keep going back to, though, with every meeting is that a reappraisal is basically just an opportunity to reset assessed values to market. It's not the tax rate. It's not actually, it's a component of your tax bill, but it's not gaining value for the county in any kind of way. You're just reassessing properties to market. Here is the sales ratios over the last 3 years. We've got improved sales. The sales ratio is basically a way of measuring values, sales values against a frozen component. Our assessed values are frozen at the 2023 levels, and we're measuring sales against that value. As you can see, between 23 and 25, that sales ratio went down. A sales ratio that goes down indicates sales prices that are increasing. And in 2026, you can see that the sales ratio climbed just a little bit, indicating that sales prices might be going down.
And the reason we went down,
Is because sales values, sales prices increased. So we've got a fixed base of our 2023 assessed values for this slide. We're looking at the 2023 values. They're fixed at a particular point, but sales prices are market driven and they're increasing. So this measures the ratio between the rising sales prices and a fixed assessed value, the 2023 value. When the sales prices shrink, that means when the sales ratios shrink, that means sales prices are increasing. There's an inverse relationship. And that's the same, so that's improved parcels where there's actually a building of some sort. If you look at the vacant land in Burke County, and there's a substantial amount of vacant land in Burke, you can see the same trend, that the sales ratios went down between 2023 and 2025, indicating that sales prices increased because, again, there's an inverse relationship. And in 2026, there's a slight trend up. The sales ratios increase just a little bit, indicating that prices maybe are falling a little. But it's also true that for 2026, our sample size is much smaller than other years. So we don't know completely yet if this is a trend or if this is how the market is going to be. Either which way, at the tax office, we are ready to be able to maneuver with the market.
Did you say this is total sales or just commercial or?
Total.
Total sales.
Total sales across Burke County, and these are qualified sales. So this is excluding any sales between family members, or things like that, non-market sales. So we have about 5,100 so far.
if we had to assign a good or bad, is this good or bad?
For that, this is not really good or bad. It's
Okay.
just basically telling us where the market is trending.
Where's that? Okay.
The good or bad will be decided by the tax rate, depending on how much money is needed eventually for people to know
Okay.
whether their tax bills will go up or down. This is just values. Here we're looking at the volume of sales by quarter. So you can see that there's sort of a cyclical pattern to the sales. In the spring and the summer, the number of sales tends to increase and tapers off when the weather is cold. And again, in 2026, we don't really have a full data set yet. This is a view by sales ratio. So like we said, the sales ratio is a ratio between assessed value and sales. When the sales ratio increases, that means sales prices are decreasing and vice versa. We use this basically to target where values need to end up, because by statute, we are required to value property at the beginning of a reappraisal cycle to market. And the way we figure out what market is by studying the sales that have happened in that area. The reappraisal just basically closes the gap between assessed value and sales price. So the line that you see at the bottom, the red line at the bottom, that's our 2023 assessed values that are frozen in time. The blue line is sales. So you can see sales have increased over our assessed values for 2023. The 2027 reappraisal is going to be that flat red line at, at the top there, which is going to basically mean that we are going to reset the values for Burke County based on where the market ends up. And that in itself is not good or bad or anything. It's just bringing everything up to market. And you do it periodically because different areas appreciate or depreciate at different rates. And if you never reset the market, there would be inequities in how much tax people are paying. Certain segments increase more than others. Did you have something to say, Travis?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that yearly we have to submit a sales ratio study to the Department of Revenue. And once we drop below a certain range, which is between 1.15 and 0.85, we're required within 3 years to do a reappraisal. So that's why we're doing this reappraisal, and that's why NomREIT is focusing in on these sales ratios to show that we did drop below that level.
That's one of the things we need to stress to people too. We're doing this not just because it's the fourth year to do it, but we fell in that spectrum right there that the state says you have to do it.
Yes, we received a letter in 2025 that we had to do a reappraisal by 2028. So that's why we're doing this. We're in a 4-year window. So
What effect does it have with the frozen? The Senate and the frozen,
so yes, they did.
what effect does that have on?
Yes, Senate Bill 889, I think, was a bill that did a moratorium on some counties that were doing a revalve in 2026. They've had to revert back to 2025. That has no effect on the counties that are doing a 2027 revalve at this point or going forward that we can tell. The reason they may have done that is just to take a look at the reappraisal cycles and the tax base. I do not know the background of why they want to do a moratorium on that.
Narita, do the grid represent anything? The ticks over here on the left-hand side, is that percentages or the ones here that it says property values are going up and then there's a tick and a tick
Yes,
and a tick?
no, I
and a
mean,
tick.
it's just indicating that
Is that's just, it doesn't have a number associated to that?
No.
So-
I mean, it is to scale, but basically it is just trying to show that the roll for 2023 is frozen and the sales ratio is 0.78, which means that that the assessed values are further away from sales, by the 0.78. So the sales values are above, assessed values by, what is that, $22 for every $100 of sale.
Gotcha. Now, we do every 4 years. The statute says we have to do it every 8, unless we fall within the guidelines that you're
Yes.
talking about. I mean, I'm thinking forwards in time. Is it feasible for us to do every 3?
It is, and a lot of places like Illinois, where I was a constant reassessment because you're trying to stay with the market. It's also expensive.
I know. I was going to say there's an
time-consuming.
expense to doing that,
Yes.
but I'm just thinking of the shock because now it's. I mean, listening to poor Valdez talk about tax rates and they're factoring in this new bump that we're going to have in 27,
Right.
and so it's become fuel for the fire of not taxing. Would it be feasible and financially sound to do it every 3 so that shock of 20% or 25 or whatever the case may be doesn't hit the populace all at one time?
I think, one component of that, again, is the goal of revaluation is equitable taxation, not revenue generation.
But at the same time, it generates revenue. So I get it. I know what you're saying, but for us to be purely transparent with the populace, which is what we're trying to do, sometimes that conversation needs to be had. Is it good for us to do it every 4, which we've seemed to have done? It benefits the county, and then it sets us to where we're equal in value with where we should be statute wise. But and I'm just thinking outside the box and trying to think forwards, because, you know, there's a lot of people that will complain.
And I agree, there are some larger counties that have the staff and the power
Correct.
and the revenue to do a 2-year cycle. There are a couple of larger counties that are trying to work towards a 2-year cycle where you don't have a fluctuation in value and the tax rate. And doing it on a 4-year cycle here has kind of kept that down. And we're actually doing it in-house this year. We have not used any outside commercial help.
I know we have software that we have purchased that helps that. We've heard that in this
Yes.
meeting and other meetings, that
And
instead of it's a boots on the ground kind of thing.
And I also think when you got a growing county, it's better to do it in, in fewer years.
Yeah.
But I think we're losing population and we're not growing like Catawba County, for example. So I think we're probably better off doing it
I mean,
the way
also
you're doing it. So,
the sales climate in the last 10 years has been quite different than the 2008 or 9 crash. So you know, you have to remember that the sales could go up, they could go down. It could be any which way, and you want to keep trying to do a reval as quickly as it is financially feasible, um, so that you're trying to keep values equitable, and revaluations are ways to do that. The only reason to space them out is because it's expensive and you need staff. If it was easy and there was cheap software available that you could do it more frequently, I think that would be everyone's preference.
When we voted to do it every 4 years, Kevin, at the time, this is what I looked at as chairman of the board. I looked at how fast are we growing, like we said right here, okay? How fast are you growing? It is expensive, okay? So we had to look, you know, we were doing it on an 8-year cycle and it really screwed us up big time bad. So when we made the motion to go to the 4 years, that was the point we picked because the market was what it was, and trying to guess what the market is going to be 2 years after you pick a 4-year date is extremely hard. So I thought it was the most fair way to set it off. Doesn't mean we can't go back and look at 3 with this board, but I don't think they will at this time. 4 seems to be the comfortable spot for the growth of Burke County. As Jerry said, I think I would disagree with those numbers, Jerry, even though they were put out that we were losing. I don't think we are. It's cities versus counties. There's a little bit of difference in the numbers there. Who's moving out, who's moving in. So as far as cities, I think you probably have some changes in the numbers. But the county, the numbers say we have grown over the past few years, and I think we're on a slow growth. But that's the reason we picked the 4, and that's the reason we voted at that time to make it. There was actually one year we were supposed to, according to the state, we're supposed to do a reval, and we didn't do it because there was no change. And we were at a flat. If you remember, we were flat. There was zero, nothing. I said, we're not going to do a reval if you don't have to, because that's a totally, you know, out of the question to
Expensive and
spend that kind
yeah.
of money.
Yep.
I hated to go back to history lesson, but I think that's significant to say.
Well, I'm old enough to remember the 8-year cycle.
Yeah.
And when they changed to 4. So, and like I said,
But that was the reason.
I'm just thinking, you know, like I said, sometimes you have to think outside the box, and, you know, we set it at 4, and is that great? Well, it is working now, but we still need to be flexible enough to say, hey, maybe we'd consider something else, particularly on a very aggressive year where we've had a lot of inflated sales, and that number is going to grow, you know, and literally exponentially from that flat line that we set it in 27. So, but that's just my thing. So let's move on.
I hope we have that year.
I hope they have it.
So here we are looking, so we've so far just talked about sales ratios, comparing the 2023 frozen values to sales. Now, if you look at the same sales against the 2027 SOV that we've been working on in our office, you can see that the sales ratio, the improved sales ratio on the 23 scale was 0.768, but on the 27 scale, it's 0.954, so much closer to 1. We have to assess at 1. Vacant sales, if you look at the old scale, it was 0.828, and now we're at 0.996. So overall, we're trying to write, at this point, we're trying to fine tune our 2027 schedule, and we're at 0.964. We're supposed to be at 1. We want a little flexibility because, like we saw, we don't have that many sales in yet. We know that the bulk of the data has yet to come in. And right now, the way we're positioned, I think we're in a good way to react to what the sales show us in the next few months.
Namita, would it be accurate to say, based on the 2027 ratio being 0.964, that the decisions that you and this team have made up to this point have gotten us within 4% of where we want to be
Absolutely.
when we started the beginning of the year
Absolutely.
off at 30% off? Is that?
That's absolutely right. All of the things that you have reviewed and voted on, like we have a whole list of things. The grades, we talked about land size factors. We've talked about a bunch of things. All those have factored into the 0.964. So I think we're in a good spot in terms of where we have to land at the end of this year. Moving on to what we're finding with our commercial properties. This here is a breakdown of our improved commercial. So we're not talking about land here. We're talking about improved commercial properties in Burke County. We have 2,600 of them. The biggest, so these are numbers, but in terms of dollars, the institutional is by far bigger than every other category, and that includes the hospital, government buildings, the schools, and things like that. In terms of numbers, the biggest category is retail, and surprisingly, well, it was surprising to me that the biggest category within retail were auto garages and auto shops. Was a large number. I wanted to go into a little more depth in what we're finding with these commercial parcels at this meeting. With retail, our main categories are strip centers like Morganton Heights and Fiddler's Run, and a bunch of the other strip mall, strip center type of places. Mostly, they haven't really changed that much between the 23 and the 27 values. Strip centers overall are not the most robustly growing in our commercial base. It's more industrial properties and storage facilities, amazingly. Supermarkets actually dropped in value just a little bit from where we had them in 2023. And we have a series of I've got Dollar General, but that would include all of the dollar store type outfits. They've actually lost value because interest rates are growing, and those are triple net properties, and that affects them. This also shows you that a reappraisal doesn't mean everything increases. It's resetting value. So some areas might increase, but some might decrease. And that is the whole point of the reval, that you're adjusting values to what the market is indicating. In our apartments, we have a fair number of Section 42 housing. This is affordable housing where these apartment buildings get tax benefits, income tax benefits, and also property tax benefits. In terms of property taxes, they are valued at their actual income and actual expenses, not market. And then, of course, you've got all the other apartment buildings. Overall, apartment buildings grew by 34% between 23 and 27. Section 49 grew more also because there's I think there are 2 new complexes between the 23 and the 27 reval. Industrial property, this is where we've seen a big change over 23 to 2027. Storage facilities grew by 41%, but industrial and manufacturing grew by 63%. This is also partly because the increase between 2019 and 2023 wasn't probably exactly what it should have been. I don't think we marked up our industrial property to where the 2023 value should have been. So a little bit of this might be catch up, but overall values increased by 63% for some of our industrial properties. And this here is a look for the overall increase that we're projecting in value in for Burke County, and this is assessed value. Again, this does not mean taxes. This is just based on sales where we think the market is. Overall, we're projecting that our assessment base will be, this is taxable assessment base, will be about 11.6 billion at the for the 2027 reval. It probably will shift just a little bit depending on what the sales show us in the next few months, but this is sort of what we're projecting.
And that doesn't include the personal property, that's just the real
That's
estate.
correct. And that's it. That's the presentation for today.
Namrita, with the values continuing to fluctuate, when will we stop looking at sales and say, here's where we're at, here's the number?
January 1, 2027. So we'll go right up to December because that's our mandate, is to have them valued as of market as of the end of 2026. So
When you look at condominiums, for example, I noticed on that sheet that I gave you, there's a group of condominiums, ones that sold had a higher value. They're all the same, so same size and everything. Ones that sold had a higher value than the ones that did not sell. When you look at those kinds of things, how do you determine the tax value if it has not sold, but you got one right beside it, it's the same size, it did sell?
we, by statute, we're supposed to increase the whole tax base that falls into that category. So if there's a condominium, one sold, we can use the value of the one that sold to raise the values of the others that didn't sell. That's the whole purpose of the reval. That said, some areas of Burke County are difficult because they don't have sales. Our 5,500 sales are concentrated in the same areas every time. So we have a good amount of robust sales in specific areas, and large swaths don't have sales. They're generational property that's handed down from one generation to the next. And it is very difficult to value those. So in those cases, you kind of try to make the radius bigger and bigger until you find similar properties or have some basis to draw conclusions. So for commercial property, you can rely on sales of similar properties, but you can also rely on cap rates and rental rates for similar properties. And if you don't have that data within the county, you'd have to go outside the county to try to find similar sales in the adjoining counties that are sort of equivalent, so you have to draw the best conclusions that you can.
Right, our cap rates do change.
Yes.
Just like that.
Yes.
Last time we talked about drugstores, for example.
Yes.
Drugstores, especially chain drugstores, have gone from a 5.5 cap rate to a 7 cap rate.
Correct.
And so.
Yes. Yes, and we have that reflected in our a lot of our commercial property is going to be valued by income this time, and because cap rates and rental rates are much easier and much more available than sales,
Right.
and so that's what you would use.
All right, let's go around the board and then see if anybody has any questions. Or first of all, let's do a motion to accept Namrita's report.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, uplifted right hands.
Aye.
Mr. Clerk, that is unanimous. Okay, now we'll go around the board. Mr. Smith, anything to say today, sir?
Not really. I guess just so I totally understand, when we see the residential plus 31.5%, on average, would we assume that it's safe to say properties, residential properties in general are gonna go up 31%?
In their assessed value, yes.
In
Yes.
value, not, yeah,
Yes.
not a tax rate,
Correct.
but,
Yes. Some might go up more, some might go up less, some might reduce from 23.
but when it all
overall,
balances
yes.
out.
Yes,
Gotcha.
correct.
And I think it'd also be helpful to point out that 31% also includes the fact that in 2027, there's about 600 to 800 more homes than there were in 2025 because there are homes being built. So a small amount of that is
New development,
additional inventory.
yes.
But I think you'll find in retail sales, the average price point is somewhere between 350 and 500. But the houses over that are not selling. And so would you say a $1 million house would go up, the tax value would go up 31% or 30?
Um,
Or
no, it would
Location,
just depend on the
location.
neighborhood where it is and other sales around it that would indicate what the value of that particular home should be. Some did increase and are still increasing, like the houses around the lake.
Yeah,
They're sitting on the market longer. Some of the asking prices might not be what people end up getting, but again, people are asking for a lot higher than they would have in 23. So from an asking price point of view, maybe the value that it finally sells for might be a little bit lower, but then people's expectations are much higher as well. So values will be decided on actual sales that have happened in that area, right around that home.
Yeah, and this is a county-wide projection. Every market area has a different factor, array of things that go into each location, grades, you know.
because lake property
Exactly.
goes a lot higher than city of Morganton, for example. And
Correct.
So, I bet, so there might be $1 million house value in Morganton that would not sell. And in fact, there are 2 or 3 that are on the market now and they keep dropping the price.
Right,
So,
right.
but at the lake,
It keeps
you know,
appreciating.
those prices usually pretty much sell at the listing price in a lot of cases, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we will keep an eye on the sales till the last moment. So,
Well, I guess the only other thing I'd wanna question or add is, I heard you guys talking earlier in the meeting about whether or not our population's in decline. I've been a builder for 30 years and I was having a conversation with some buddies of mine this weekend who are also builders. And I don't think I've built a house for a natural born Burke County citizen since 2018.
Really? Wow.
Everybody I'm building houses for are baby boomer generation and they're moving here. And their budget's not what our budget is. You know, they don't mind to spend $750,000 on a house because they sold their 1,200 square foot house in downtown Orlando for $4 million. So I guess when we do projections, how is that taken into account, or is it, as far as
yes, it is.
the people moving into the area and what their budget may be, so on and so forth?
I mean, basically, when people move into the area, they do drive values up.
Yeah.
So, and that is in the grand scheme beneficial to the county because it's increasing the tax base, but it's reducing the burden on individual homes because you're going to need a certain amount of money that you have to raise to run the county. That's the budget that the commissioners vote on. That budget, that fixed amount of money is then spread against your tax base. If your tax base is bigger, the burden on individual homes becomes smaller.
Gotcha, okay.
And so even though they're driving values up, it's actually beneficial for the county.
So for the local guy who's had that same house for 30 years, in theory, his part of the burden to bear should be a little less.
Yes,
Got it.
because other people are driving. It's less, and they look at the value of their house and they're shocked because they think that they're going to get billed on that extra money, but they're not looking at all the extra value that's created all around in the county, and that's all absorbing some of the money that needs to get raised to run the county.
Gotcha.
And I agree with what you're saying. I think that's the thing we're having across the entire state, or in the western side of the state, is that, like, I'm from Wilkes County, like I said, I'm from Watauga County, these people are coming in, they're paying a lot more, and it seems like there's, the local folks that have had their homes for a long time, and they're seeing the values increase because the demand to live here is, and the supply is being impacted. So you're seeing folks come in and pay these high prices, and it drives the values up. And it does impact the local folks, but the object is to make sure that we're spreading out the values the way they should be in these certain market areas. The certain market areas are going to be impacted heavier than others. You know, you may be building in certain areas and you may not be than other areas that you're building in. So we're hopefully going to capture that in those certain market areas, and hopefully it won't be such a big impact on the local people. But that is where I see the state kind of looking at things right now, is seeing the influx of people moving to North Carolina, and it drives the values up, and it impacts these people that have had these farms or homes or the acreages forever, and it drives their value up, and they've been living there for 30 years, like you say. So we're trying to look at all those factors. We can't, but the sale price is the sale price. If it's an arm's length transaction, we have to factor it into our value. So.
Gotcha. Okay. That's the only questions I had.
Okay, Jerry?
I think I've asked all my questions.
Kevin?
So I'm sitting here thinking, so we've learned an encyclopedia's of, amount of knowledge. At what time does this task force start to disseminate that to the populace? And I was kind of under the impression that that was one of our roles,
Yes.
is that we would know what you guys were doing in the tax office, and that we could disseminate that information out to the people on a timely enough basis that they could perhaps wrap their minds around why these things are happening and what's caused it. So do we have a time frame for that, Mr. Chair, or is that something that we need to start thinking about, maybe like in October or November, to start doing some paper pieces and some maybe some PR kind of things, so that we can tell folks why this is happening?
And and I may interject.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So we are thinking of doing some public speaking, going out to community centers, things like that, senior centers. And Namrita's brought this up to kind of get the word out, update our website with the correct information. I will be speaking at the next board meeting, talking about some things. We'll be, looking forward to the process, the time, and as we go forward each month, I'll be doing something at the board meetings just like this meeting. So I think our goal is to get the word out, the what, when, where, and whys, and why we have to do these things.
Well, and Travis, you're the enemy. I'm sorry to say that, and I don't say it outright. You're the guy that's causing all this. We're not. So,
Right.
Hearing it from us, sort of a disinterested third party, would carry a lot more weight in some arenas. And I'm not afraid to speak publicly or to do PR stuff. So I'm looking forward to
welcome that.
being able to do that if that's something you guys want to happen.
Yes, and we want to do that. No doubt. We want you to be a part of that and help us get the word out. We also want people to realize we are here to do a service and be a servant to the citizens, the civil servants. That's our job.
Yeah.
Even though we have the tax name to our department, we're here to help and make sure everything gets done the way it should. And we want you to be a part of that.
Okay.
I think one of the things you need to keep in mind when you are talking about taxes is in my history, I've done a lot of commercial work in just a lot of counties in the state. Burke County is one, and I say not Burke County, mostly Morganton, is one of the toughest towns to do business in the state. And thank goodness now we've got a task force to reevaluate the restrictions and the requirements that are, and hopefully some of those restrictions are going to be eased, so it's easier to do business. But taxes is one of the things that comes into play when you're dealing with a commercial firm that's looking at your county to move into. And I just, you know, you have to, taxes is one of the things, but the other restrictions that you have to go through is also a factor. And hopefully Morrison is gonna ease up on some of their restrictions, and so it becomes easier to do business in the county or in the cities.
One of the things that drew me here was teamwork, accountability, the things that Burke County stands on. And we want to work as a team on this. So anything, as we move forward, we'll come up with a great plan to get the word out and let you folks help us be the voice for this reevaluation process.
And to close out the answer to your question, Kevin, it was no, we don't have a timeline. What we were waiting on, I was privileged to know that John was going to be leaving us. So I wanted to wait till Travis came aboard so that we could make plans of how we wanted to make our delivery. So we're going to get with Travis and the county manager, and we're going to try to set a game plan as how we move forward with this committee, and this committee along with the tax assessor's office. We will be making the presentations. How we do that, we'll get input from each of the board members, but I need to get with the county manager and Travis and have a kind of a triangle set down to decide how we want to move forward. We're not moving forward cautiously. We want to move forward in a way that would be strategically is a good word. Move strategically, not cautiously, but move strategically. Because we have all learned a lot, even sitting where I sat for the many, many years, I still learn something every time I sit down with Namrita, because we're very blessed. And I think Travis, you already know that have Namrita here, and Hugh himself too, what we're looking at here. We've learned a lot, and there's a lot of input, and just great to have a builder like Brian sitting down there to add his expertise too. So yes, we are at that point where we need to make a decision because time is closing in on us. And but we was talking about the tax burden a while ago. I think the last report we have from NCACC, I think we stood at maybe the tax burden, we were the 28th lowest in the state, maybe even lower than that. I can't remember Namrita what we were at, but the tax burden is not that.
No, it's not crazy.
It depends on what section of the state that you're living in and what the economy is there at that time. That's the reason I say I think Burke County's sitting at a precipice of where we need to be. Go ahead, Travis.
No, I just think it's a whole team effort, whether it's Hugh, county manager, everybody's trying to work to take burden off the tax base. And that's the whole goal here. So,
And if I may add, Kevin, if you have suggestions on places we should go speak or resources that we should give you, I think you have full authority to share all of the information that we have with anyone that you think would benefit. And also, we've been working on our strategy for the appeal process as well to streamline, give people an online option, because at the end of the day, the goal for the appeals process is to make sure that we did get everything correct.
Right.
And so the easier we make it for people to, right, we actually want people to appeal so that we have a chance to go and double check and make sure that we're being as accurate as we can be. So we're going to be streamlining how people do that, and also having some sessions. I think we talked about potentially at like the library or the senior center or other community locations to help people understand that process as well.
Well, I'll work on a report for our August meeting of strategic places and conversations to have and the touch points that we need to make at different places. So I'll have that back in our August meeting if that pleases the chair.
That pleases the chair. Yeah, actually, if you have it even sooner, you can email it to us, and so we may add to or make our horses known to at the same time.
And while we're on that subject, on behalf of the Western Piedmont Home Builders Association, I'd like to invite you to come speak to us. We have a monthly meeting over at the Elks Lodge, which is, everybody that's a member. But I'm also on the board of directors. You could come talk to us and have us pass it on down, which actually the meeting's tomorrow, but, a different month.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Well, if not, our next meeting will be August the 4th, here in the building here at 9:00 a.m. If there's anything else to come before us, Travis, any closing remarks? What do you think about what you've seen?
no, I think this was a great meeting. And I got to introduce myself, but y'all didn't get to introduce yourself. But the more you talk, the more I understand what you do and who you are. And where
Well,
you're
let
from.
us go around. That's my
So,
fault for doing
just
that.
learning that Brian's a builder. And
Yeah, Kevin, go ahead and start. Tell a little bit
So
about yourself.
I'm Kevin Pierce. I own a family-owned insurance office in downtown Valdez now since 1933, and my great grandfather started it. So my dad came in, married into the insurance, and then I came in, brother number two, now brother number three, and my son, and so we have 9 people there. So
Wow.
we have a history of being involved with Valdez in the county.
I'm a commercial developer and background has been, we were preferred developer for CVS. And did about 50 CVSs throughout North Carolina.
Good.
And so of course, CVS is not, they're not expanding now. So we're just diversifying and doing other commercial properties.
Right?
I've been a builder for 30 years here in Burke County, born and raised, and just also trying to serve on the Home Builders Association board, trying to navigate the market as it evolves constantly. And I focus 95% of my work's residential.
And I'm Johnny Carswell, and my background is I'm retired out of law enforcement. I retired from North Carolina Department of Public Safety, became a commissioner and sat on the board for 13 and a half years, was past president of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, born and raised here in Burke County. We all love Burke County, and we want to see it grow as it needs to grow and be fair with the citizens, which I think we have so far. Glad to have you aboard. I know it's been kind of a transition for you to come from where you were at into Burke County, but it's a great place to work and live.
You're exactly right, and I have a great staff, and they're doing a great job. Kind of a little trusting. I'm trying to learn where the bathroom's at, as they say. No, it's great to be on this board with you folks, and it's nice to see the diversity. I'm anxious to meet the other folks as well, and just your positiveness and willingness to do this is very helpful for us at Burke County. And I love Burke County too, so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So
And a second. Thank you, folks.